Alright, so you need to go to Walmart or your local hardware store and you need to get 1,000 grit. Do not use 320, 600, or even 800 because we don't want to take any metal off. We do want to clean the surface. We also want to clean the front of the housing because this pump doesn't sit perfect in here. You'll create a weak point and then you'll be leaking and doing this job twice. I'm going to take a little bit of the old antifreeze. We're just going to go around until we get it clean.
So you said something about antifreeze?
Yeah, we're using basically the antifreeze as a lubricant. So I don't want to use any oil where there's going to be antifreeze. Oil and water don't mix.
No. Are you putting a new thing on there?
New thing what?
What are you putting on there? Because something's got to fill the void.
Oh, a new Ford water pump straight from the factory.
Can't just be empty.
Nope. It won't pump water very well without a pump.
No.
Alright, we're going to clean that off and see what we got going on. Normally, you'd have a big old gasket here, put a bunch of RTV and call it a day. But this isn't one of those engines.
The hose is a bit slippery.
Slippery and wet, that is true.
When will cleaning be done? Seems like you gotta freaking make this thing raw.
Well, to be honest with you, it's got to be really clean. These are tight tolerances. Unfortunately, the camera won't be able to pick it up, but up here on the top, there's quite a bit of crud here. You can feel it with your fingers. You want it pretty much baby butt smooth. I'm really surprised the O-ring didn't fail on this, but one thing about crud that's funny, as long as it's not disturbed, most of the time it won't leak till it gets really bad. But that's the thing, these leaks can be so slow that you're not checking up on your antifreeze every, so often, once a month, that you could actually run out and overheat this engine, and you'll be into it for head gaskets. Alright, as you can see, I got the bottom of the housing pretty good, but if you look up here at the top, it's still got a little bit of work to do. The top's a little tricky to get to, mostly because you got to bend your hand upside down to get to it. But yeah, that's what you don't want to see. That's okay. That, however, is not. Alright, we're going to keep working it. Alright folks, I know there's a lot of videos out there that show guys just taking the pumps and slamming them back in, but this is a very important step to clean up the housing. Now I've spent about an hour so far sanding this, and again, I cannot stress this enough, do not use low grit paper. Meaning, I actually had to go to an 800 grit. I'm going to finish polish with 1,000, and that should pretty much take care of this. If you don't take care of this and you just throw a pump over all that crud, it's going to leak. That's all there is to it. And one thing with Ford engines, if they get low on coolant or they get a leak and air goes in behind it, you will get cavitation. Now this pump hasn't cavitated, but it's definitely rusted up the housing a bit. I'm not so much worried about the rust. Rust is a normal part of engine process as far as you got dissimilar metals. You got aluminum, steel, brass, and pretty much those three metals right there create electrolysis. The goal here is to get it clean enough so it seals, you don't get leaks, and you don't cause cavitation to the pump or the housing. It can happen, but I cannot stress this enough. You've got to spend the time cleaning. Yes, it's monotonous. Yes, it's a pain in the butt. Yes, it's an extra step, but you know, I can't see replacing an engine being the better alternative. So here, I started with 1,000. I went to 800. I'm probably going to come back through with 1,000 grit. It's going to be polished. It's not going to leak. And I won't have to worry about him calling me up telling me where did his coolant go. So other than that, it's still a little bit more work to do, but we're about ready to put the pump back in. Alright, so after about an hour and a half of cleaning, sanding, cleaning, and sanding, I got it as good as I can get. One thing I'm going to tell you Ford owners out there, don't slough on your maintenance for your antifreeze. 5 years, 150,000 miles, period. The only thing that I can say is if you don't do that, there's a chance you can actually eat this casting up. And let me tell you, I thought there was a water pump cover on this, and I was wrong. This is actually casted into the block itself. So, if you choose not to do your maintenance, I can tell you right now that this pump cover can be eaten up, and there is no fix for that. Basically, the block is trashed, and you got to get a used engine put in, and hopefully find one that this housing isn't chewed up. I can't go any harder on it because I don't want to take any metal, but right there you can see where the metal electrolyzed and pretty much took a little bit when we took the water pump off. And there's nothing I could have done to prevent that. That was done before we even touched the truck. And it's unfortunate. I hate when things like that happen because, I want to do right by my customers. But there's nothing you can do when they slough on the maintenance. 18 years, 115,000 miles on this coolant. No good. I don't care what color you got, gold or green, wouldn't really matter. We got a little bit starting over here too. Yeah, right there. That's not leftover rubber. That's metal that's sitting on the water pump. I mean, the rest of it's in pretty good shape. No problem there, but there's just a couple spots that, I don't know. It's unfortunate. You could, I suppose, if you really had to, you could try to put some blue RTV. There are some engines where, if we can't get an O-ring to seal, no matter if we do it right, wrong, good, bad, or indifferent, sometimes to get them sealed, we'll actually use some RTV. I'm hoping this isn't bad enough to require that, but we're going to go ahead and put it in the Ford way, which is basically a little bit of lubricant on the O-ring, and slide it back in and tighten the specs, see what we got. I'll show you the water pump. Now the thing is, this water pump's aluminum, which they did that so it wouldn't rust steel to steel, but the one thing about the aluminum, as you can see here, it's all discolored, and where those little ripples are right here on the side, it's just a shame. I mean, if he would have just right there, if he would have just done his maintenance. Okay, I'll put an arrow up now, but you see where that line is. Now, thank God it's after the O-ring and not before it, and it'll probably be fine, but none the same. This is a warning to you 5.4 owners. Do your maintenance. 5 years, 150,000 miles, period. I would just say every 50,000 miles, drain it so you don't have this, because he was actually leaking not enough matter, not enough to notice it in the coolant box, but eventually one day, you know, had this gone on for one more year, this could have been a real bad deal. Man. Alright, I got a little bit of cleaning to do. Basically at this point, once you get your surface clean, you're going to take some brake cleaner and then you're going to go through the housing, clean it up real good before you install the O-ring. You know, any leftover material is going to do one or two things: rip your O-ring or contaminate your coolant, clog radiator. Now that is kind of being excessive about it, but you get enough in there, it's possible it could happen. So as soon as we get that done, we'll be ready to slam this pump in.